Hi, friends and strangers. Welcome back to Pam Shenanigans. Definitely one of my favorite books of the year, hands down. But this one is so good. It's French Kiss. It's that time of the year again where we look back at the books that we've read for the year. And since I have failed in creating a wrap up for each reading month of last year, I will just give some recommendations based on the books that I've read for 2024 as part of my 2024 wrapped videos. Starting with Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. Michelle documents her life as an only daughter to a Korean mother and an American dad. This memoir navigates through the different areas and times of her life that is ultimately anchored on family. The memoir shows how she and her family dealt with the grief of losing her mother to cancer, and the audiobook is also narrated by the author. Number two is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. Lo is a journalist who has been given a chance to experience a week on a luxury cruise. What seems to be the cruise of a lifetime for her turns dark as she seems to have witnessed someone getting thrown overboard. Then Lo sets off to find out the truth. This has a very eerie setting and mysterious plot with a very satisfying ending. And I listened to the audiobook of this one and I enjoyed it a lot. The next one is Annie Bot by Sierra Greer. This novel follows a sentient robot girlfriend named Annie and her relationship with her human owner Doug. If you're looking for a literary fiction with sci-fi elements, this may be the book for you. It shows the daily life of Annie as she learns more about herself and the more that she becomes curious about the world and human relationships in general. She also learns the nuance of human emotions and what it means to be a human in a world where AI like her is only made to serve humans. The next one is Dwellers by Eliza Victoria. Definitely one of my favorite books of the year, hands down. This was my second Eliza Victoria book last year and I was hooked. It follows its cousins from a family of dwellers. So dwellers are people who can jump in other people's bodies. And they find themselves in a bit of a pickle because the bodies that they're currently dwelling in are brothers Jonah and Louis, who have a literal dead body in their basement. The story follows Jonah and Louis as they find out the truth while also trying very hard not to implicate themselves to a murder that they didn't do. So this was so well written. It was compelling and riveting and addicting from start to finish and would leave you with a lot of questions towards the end. The next book is The Hysterical Girls of St. Bernadette's by Hannah Alkaf. Even though this is my only second Han Al-Kaf book, I am thoroughly convinced that every book she writes is a masterpiece. The story and the plot itself was full of intrigue. So imagine an all-girls school that has a sudden case of mass hysteria with girls literally screaming one by one. So the writing is eerie and imaginative and plays out like a horror movie. This will grip you from the very beginning and have you tearing through the pages to get answers and justice for the screaming girls. The next book is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I think everything that needs to be said about this masterpiece has already been shared. Babel follows Robin Swift, an orphan from Canton, who was brought to London by Professor Lovell to be trained in different languages before he sets off to Oxford's Royal Institute of Translation, which is also known as Babel. So to Robin, this was an extreme privilege to learn about translation, magic, and silverworking. All of this work, though, boils down to serving the British Empire and its thirst for colonization. It tackles more than just the intricacies and nuances that language and translation bring. There's colonization, survival, and betrayal at the heart of this book, while the hyper focus on details and footnotes at the bottom of the pages may seem heavy-handed to some people, but I honestly enjoyed reading them and did not at all like throw me off the reading experience. The next book is a Lisa Jewell book, which is None of This is True. This is a psychological thriller that features a true crime podcaster, Alex Summers, finding herself to be the subject of her own true crime podcast with a strange woman she met at the pub. So they share the same birthday and age, but there is a lot that Josie Fair lets on, and Alex is going to find out the truth one way or another. When I say this is one of the best audiobook productions that I've ever listened to, I mean it. I've listened to a lot of audiobooks through the years, but this one is so good. It's French kiss. The story and the plot are already interesting and gripping, but listening to the audiobook added an extra layer of intrigue and immersion as the chapters are divided into one, the past and the present, and two, the days where Alex and Josie were interacting and recording the podcast for Alex's show. And three, the produced and released podcast by Alex, complete with a full cast and realistic sound effects. Since the storytelling is non-linear, we get glimpses of the podcast as it was posted, while also getting chapters of what could possibly answer the podcast episodes. So if you're a fellow true crime and or podcast lover like me, you will love None of This is True. The next one is The Odds of Happily Ever After by Ange Miranda. This is one of my favorite romance reads of the year. This wholesome and heartwarming romance follows Luna, a college freshman who has a lot to prove to herself and to her family, and Gabe, a college professor and is also Luna's sister's best friend. This book has well-rounded and self-aware characters. It also has realistic romance, Filipino representation, as well as funny and compelling writing. I am not one to seek out the age gap in the teacher-student trope in romance, but I can say that it was handled pretty well in this one. Number 9 is Sunderworld Volume 1, The Extraordinary Disappointments of Leopold Berry by Ransom Riggs. This book follows a 17-year-old Leopold Berry as he starts seeing weird things again around Los Angeles. The strange things that he's been seeing are from the old fantasy TV show Sunderworld that he's grown obsessed with. So are these hallucinations or is Sunder real? I absolutely enjoyed reading this and I cannot wait for the sequel. It has a very simple yet intriguing plot. The writing was imaginative and hilarious. It gently tackles mental health and grief and has the chosen one, but maybe not, but maybe they are trope. We are down to the 10th book, which is Kaiju number 8 by Naoya Matsumoto. So I was able to read like 3 or 4 volumes of Kaiju last year. And this manga series follows our main character Kafka Hibino, whose dream is to work beside his childhood best friend Mina as part of the Japan Defense Force, whose job is to defeat all kaijus. Kafka is given another chance to join the force, but with his luck, he also turns into a kaiju. So this isn't a spoiler, it's literally part of the blurb. I've watched the anime before reading the manga, and it's still made for a great reading experience. The manga is much more hilarious than the anime though. The next book is First Lie Wins by Ashley Elston. If you're a fan of the John Wick series like I am, I think you're gonna enjoy First Lie Wins. While John Wick was super action-packed, First Lie Wins' strength is in the mind games behind every situation. But what is it about? Evie Porter has everything: a stable home life and a doting boyfriend. But Evie Porter does not exist. It's an alias given to her by her mysterious boss, Mr. Smith, as part of her current job. That includes her boyfriend as her next target. This book is a game of cat and mouse with stakes so high it's a matter of life or death. It was riveting with twists that I didn't see coming until the end. The 12th and last book on our list is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. So whenever someone asks me for a romance book recommendation or a book recommendation in general, I will always scream 7 Days in June. It remains to be my absolute favorite. The book follows two very different writers. There's Eva Mercy, a single mom and a best-selling author of a fantasy erotica series. And there's Shane Hall, an enigmatic and award-winning literary fiction author. Based on the title itself, 7 Days in June, this book features the past and the present for Eva and Shane. 20 years ago, they spent a week together, madly in love. Then 20 years later, they unexpectedly meet again in a literary event and spend another week in summer reconnecting, yet trying their best to not relive their dark pasts. The writing, the plot, the cheeky, hilarious, and realistically flawed characters, the representation of motherhood, and the hard-hitting lines made this an immediate favorite for me. And I will continue to scream about this book to anyone who asks. And those are my top 12 books of 2024. I was able to read a total of 57, but these are the best of the best for me. So these aren't ranked accordingly, and these are only based on the books that I've read for the year 2024, regardless of their release dates. Let me know which ones are making it to your TBR or if you've read any of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye!